Hi, I'm Trish Thuy Trang. I am a Vietnamese singer, an entrepreneur, and a mother.
How can it be that once you said you'd be there for me, made me believe that I was all that you'd ever need? I was so blind to
I guess just to start off, I wanted to ask you what you would describe your music as, for anyone who might not have heard it before.
My music is, I don't know, when I listen to it now, it sounds very young and naive. But I guess it's just Vietnamese pop. I would call it Vietnamese bubblegum pop.
How old were you when you started to do music?
I was pretty young, really young. I was always into music. Would listen to my mom's records or tapes, I guess, at the time, all the time. And I memorized every song, even like 70s songs or 80s songs that she would listen to, like Stevie Nicks, like really old stuff, like Fleetwood Mac, all that stuff.
Nice.
Just even Madonna.
Was this in Vietnam or here?
Oh, here. I was raised here. I came over when I was just a few months old.
That's actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask because I noticed that your music draws from like a variety of different influences and genres, and you put it all together to make like a sound of your own, that's in the structure of Vietnamese pop. What was your songwriting process like?
It changed song to song. It always was a little different. I had like a notebook of just titles of songs that I wanted to write. And then if a melody came to me with that title, I would record it. Or a melody would come with no words, I would record it. I would just sing it or hum it. I used to write a lot about young love and that type of stuff.
give our love another try before you turn and walk away.
What was it like recording your first album, Don't Know Why?
It was awful. It was awful because I didn't know what I was doing, because singing in a studio is completely different from what I only had experienced at the time was karaoke or just singing out loud. I had a friend, her uncle did the graphic design for Asia at that time, and we would always go karaoke, and she's like, why don't you send a tape to Asia or something? So I sent in a demo of me singing it was almost like country songs. It was Sheryl Crow, one of the songs. And I can't remember the other song, but I sent them a tape, and I dropped it off because I knew where Asia was, because my friend was nagging me to do it. And they actually called me back, and I thought it was a joke, actually. I was like, you don't want me. I think I even missed the first interview. Yeah, and they were like, well, do you want a contract? And I didn't even know what they were talking about. I thought it was all a joke. And then I remember talking to my dad, and he said, they're probably going to make you it's probably a scam. They're going to make you pay them to. So when I came back, I said, do I need to pay for anything? Because I'm not going to do it if I have to pay you guys. And I just remember the owner was laughing at me. She goes, no, we're going to pay you to sing. And I thought it was so bizarre. From there, they're like, okay, we want you to come in and record. I think it was a No Doubt song. It was Don't Speak. At that time, it was popular. She said that we want you to come in and do a cover of that. And I heard that on the radio. So I was like, I know this song. I'm gonna record it. And like, I even brought my friends. I remember, yes, come with me. It's gonna be really quick. I didn't take it seriously, and the sound engineer was like, you're awful. You don't know this song. And I think I said, what is the first lines of that song? Like, you and me. I say that was all I got past. I didn't sing anything past that, and they sent me home. And it was like
In the
after,
first recording session?
yeah, it was like maybe 1 or 2 hours too, and I only got you and me, you and me.
Wow.
There's just so much that I learned from the studio during the first album, and I got yelled at a lot, got sent home a lot, was told I couldn't sing a lot. Towards the end, when I was singing a lot, I would live in the studio. I just loved being there. I would write in there, I would play around with all the instruments, all the little toys that are in there, even like the different microphones, all the wirings. I would tinker with everything.
That's really cool. As for performing live, what was that like outside of the shows for Asia?
I have lots of stories, but I must have like hid them back in the back of my mind. Just kidding. They're not coming right now. No, the live shows, I actually dreaded going. I would rather be in the studio where nobody could see me, but live shows, because you never know what's going to happen, you know? Sometimes it was like a poorly organized show, or sometimes it was a really great organized, and so you just don't know what you're gonna get, even from people picking you up from the airport. This one time I was at a show and I was singing, and then there was a break. There was like a long break until the next show or something, and I remember there's this guy who took my suitcase. He's like, okay, well, I had to take you to eat, and I said, okay. I just went with him, you know, and then we were eating at a restaurant or something, and I realized he wasn't part of the organization. I said, what time do we have to be back? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, whoa. And I just remember feeling panic at that time, but at least I was in a public restaurant, and I was like, oh God. I went with somebody that wasn't part of the production, and I called the promoter. I said, I don't know who I'm with. I went to eat with somebody. It was like in the Midwest or something. I don't remember exactly where. But there are stories like that where it was just so unorganized and kind of scary for a young person.
That sounds horrifying. That sounds literally horrifying.
That's what I mean. You don't know what you're gonna get. Asia was always amazing to me. Because I came in a time where they were really doing well, you know, with their DVDs. But I always felt like an outsider, you know, because remember you asked me one of your questions was, how do I relate to the Vietnamese and being American or being raised here? I never felt right. I still don't, because I don't really feel like I'm that Vietnamese, and I don't feel like I'm that American enough. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, definitely. It's almost like the Asian American experience. You're kind of in the middle.
Yes, exactly. You're kind of in limbo. Yeah. You know, at the time when I started Asia, lost my mom for a long time. I think it would be different if I had my mom, because my mom was into music and she was into the Vietnamese music industry. I feel like if she was around, I would have had a completely different experience, you know? Because I remember I actually went up to my dad and said, can you please speak to me in Vietnamese? Because I'm so lost and I have nobody else to teach me, you know? And I remember he tried with me, and then he said, no, let's just go back to English because it takes too long. You know? My dad's always in a rush. And I was like, ugh, I'm never going to learn because I don't have anybody to teach me. So my Vietnamese was so bad. I just remember when I was there, I just felt like an alien at Asia at the beginning, even on live shows, like meeting all the other singers. You know, I never really listened to much Vietnamese music, even when I was in it. So when people would introduce me to singers, I had no idea who most of them were. You know, they're like, "Oh, this is blah blah blah," and I just listened to American music still. My experience was really weird, and I think a lot of people thought I was weird. Even when I did shows, I would hear them say, "Oh, she's too American," or "She's too, you know, mi chang," where I wasn't, I didn't fit in with them. So I would always like kind of go off to the side or something. So they probably thought I was either stuck up or weird, or I don't know. But that was because I didn't feel like I felt I fit in with everybody.
Do you feel like it ever changed any for you, or was it like that throughout the entire experience?
I think I tried. I mean, being in Asia helped me be proud of my culture. I was definitely more connected. Like I thought like the beauty of the Aoyai, you know. I loved the fashion of it. Food definitely too, because I was very into just Western food. But when you're doing shows, everybody wants to eat Vietnamese food, so I'm like, okay, fine. I think I grew to love Vietnamese food more than American food now because of my experience with Asia. So I'm very, very happy that I had that experience. But did it change? I think people accepted me more, but some people didn't. I mean, I had some bad experience on from people or being on live shows where the Vietnamese audience did not accept me at all, and it was those type of memories. It, you know, you always remember the bad stuff. It stays with you. Okay, I remember this one time I was singing in, I think it was Canada. And you know, when I think the promoter, they know when the audience is more American or not westernized or more Vietnamese. So if it was more of a Vietnamese crowd, I would probably be the opener because nobody cares about the opener. The show is starting. Everyone just get to their seat. They don't care who's on. So I was always out there when it was a very Vietnamese show. And I remember there was this lady, there was a dance floor, and she was towards the back of the dance floor, and she just looked at me like mad, and her hands were crossed, and I was like, geez. As I was singing, I could see her, and I was like, she doesn't seem happy to be here. And then as I was singing and singing, she would come closer and closer to me, and then eventually she was right there at the bottom of the stage, and she told me to come here. She's like, come down, I need to tell you something. And I was like, okay, I'm singing right now. But then the song ended and I went down and I was like, yes. And she basically said, you can't sing and you're not singing in Vietnamese, so why don't you go home? And I was like, okay. And I just remember feeling like crap for the rest. I had like 2 more songs to do. And I was like, okay. It was things like that where I was like, I didn't feel like I felt like I wasn't part of it.
Did that influence your writing at all? Because I noticed in some of the later albums, um, there are songs in Vietnamese. And for someone like me who, you know, who's kind of the same and doesn't really listen to any Vietnamese music, if at all, um, it was kind of interesting to hear. And it made me want to explore more Vietnamese music. So I just wanted to know if it affected your songwriting at all.
I think it did. I mean, I wanted to incorporate Vietnamese because I heard that a lot actually. And I mean, Asia did too. They were like, oh, we want you to sing in Vietnamese. And I was happy to do it because I always wanted to try something new. I always just thought I was bad at it, but they said, no, just do it. That's fine. I was like, okay, I'll do it anyways. It's mostly the army songs or the military songs they liked a lot. I had a lot of the older people come up to me who I knew couldn't speak Vietnamese or English and said, oh, I really like that song. And I was like, oh, cool, you know, that made me feel a connection.
Do you know how a Western audience received your music?
I think they received it well. I mean, I think that is why Asia wanted me to do more English songs, because I even had a meeting with my boss at the time that, you know, you're connecting with the kids that grew up here, you know, and don't really speak Vietnamese or listen to Vietnamese. So yeah, you could do that. You can continue to do that, but you have to do a little bit of the other stuff too, which I was fine with doing, you know. But I never really thought I had that much of an impact. So I thought it was fun, so I just continued doing it.
Well, I mean, it definitely had an impact, at least for me, seeing someone who was in that, I guess, um, Vietnamese music scene, but also having, I guess, I don't know if representation is the right word, but feeling like I didn't have to be so far removed from that. You know what I mean?
I mean, towards the end, I wanted to do more for people that were like me here, where it's like you don't feel like you belong. Towards the end, they just wanted me to do more of what the Asia entertainment consumer wanted. Because they would tell me, well, the kids don't buy the DVDs, the parents do. The actual company is bigger than the singer. They're promoting Asia or Paris by Night as a whole, not by individual singers. You have to do something that's has to go with the entire video. One thing I think you probably realize about me is that I don't have much confidence in myself. you know, I mean, I do now as because I'm older, but at that time I was so insecure. I mean, I can't change myself. I can't change how I grew up. You know, uh, there was a point where I got angry. I'm like, why are these people yelling at me? Because this is how I was raised. I was like, I'm not gonna yell at you to speak English because that's your story.
And yeah, that's an important message because like even if you feel like you're in limbo, it's still important to know that that's who you are, and to accept it. That doesn't mean it doesn't mean that you can't improve, but it's, I guess for me at least, I still need to find a way in the middle in between all that.
Yeah, you do. It's a process. Some people find it faster, but everybody's going through a journey.
Well, what kind of advice would you give to someone who is um still on that journey and so I guess still trying to come into terms of who they are, like at the most basic level of their own identity?
Just be true to yourself. I know it sounds so cliche, but just be happy. Life is too short. I spent like that Asia time. I had fun times, but I also had a lot of unhappy times when I was like, I should have just enjoyed the entire moment, you know, not take it so seriously and brush off those people, those negative people. I mean, I do that now. And I feel like, with all the Asian, the racist hate that's going around, like I practice things that I say in my head. If somebody said something to me, if somebody was gonna say, "Go back to your own country" or something, I I, I feel like I'm confident enough to just argue back and say, "Hey, this is my country. What everybody is not from here, and if you're gonna say that, then you're very ignorant."
I hope that it will change though. I'm hoping that by being able to open up, not only you being able to open up to me, but to everyone else, and vice versa. Um, hopefully hopefully you'll hit something in people that we all have individual experiences that like it sounds so corny, but like that make us human, but we can relate to other people and their experiences, and we're not all so different, even despite a culture barrier.
Yeah, I'm just feeling more proud to be Vietnamese or an Asian, these days. But that's just me. I think everybody needs to find their journey, or maybe they're already there. But I'm here. I'm proud of. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of being Vietnamese and Asian and American. Another reason why I felt like I didn't belong is, I guess, not just the Vietnamese industry, but entertainment industry in general, everything is very sexy, right? You basically have to sell sex, and that was not me. And a few times, many times when I was in the industry, I felt like they wanted that from me, and I was like, that is not me. You're never gonna get that from me. I've had promoters that complained about my clothing. I remember when I would sing live, they're like, you know what, that's just, you're not showing enough. And I'm like, screw you. You're not gonna tell me what to wear inside, but outside I'm like, oh my god, I don't belong. But in that way, I feel like I did be true to myself, because I don't think I'm a sexy person, and I never liked that sexy look, so I never dressed like that to please anybody, you know.
I really respect the fact that you stood up for yourself and what you wanted and stuff. Aside from the pressure of them wanting you to have a quote unquote sexy image, was there any other thing that they tried to commodify in your image or your identity?
I was told that I need to get plastic surgery all the time. You're bombarded with that stuff, and I remember being told a lot about my eyes. And then at a show, I remember this girl came up to me and said, "Who did your nose?" And I said, "I don't have a nose job." I just felt like, the plastic surgery stuff, it was always to try to look Western. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Like to Western beauty standards?
Yes, all the beauty standards. It's okay if you want to do it for yourself, but for me, I never liked that look. I've recently just recently actually accepted who I am. At the time I did hate it. They make you hate it, and that you're like, oh, should I do it? Because it must be really ugly if they're telling me I need to do this. But I'm glad I never did anything, because now I just feel I accept myself a lot more with age.
Hello, this is dedicated to my one and only. You know who you are.
Like, my kids asked to listen to my songs this past year, and I was like, oh my god, fine. So I put some songs on for them, and they actually liked it. So I was like, oh great, now we have to listen to it. But then I got used to it more and more that I heard it, and it was just basically background noise.
What was it that got your kids to want to listen to your music?
I don't know, maybe the pandemic, quarantine. Well, I sing karaoke a lot for my kids. I sang for both of them since they were babies. Something happened where at a party, and somebody actually played one of my songs, and my kids was like, that sounds like you. And I was like, I think that is me. They're like, what? You sing? I go, yeah, mommy actually used to sing. And then that's when they got more curious. They thought I was just a karaoke singer. And then after that, they would hear songs on the radio and go, is that you? I'm like, no, that's not me. It's like someone on the radio or something. I go, this sounds like you. I was like, no, this is definitely not me.
What a way to find out, though.
My overall experience in the industry, the Vietnamese music industry is positive, and I always look back at it and with like happy memories, but at that time I didn't. I don't know why. I guess it was just too much in my head.
If you're comfortable with sharing, at what point did getting married and having kids, did that overlap at all with you deciding to end your music career?
It was, my love for it was fading already, and then I don't know for most women, but for me, I had this, like, it hit me like I wanted to be a mom. It hit me. I was like, okay, I need to get married. I want to have kids. It just came to me really quick. So that's basically what happened. And my kids make me happy, and they fill in that void, I guess, because I don't really think about music that much. I think becoming a mom completely changed everything for me. Like, I just wanted to be with my kids, you know, and that was more important than music. And another thing is that I was just so happy I couldn't write anymore. I didn't write for years. Just recently, I was like, I wanted to write, not even like an album, just like poems or something for my children, just to leave something behind for them. During my pregnancy, with my son in 2011, I think when you become a mom, you start worrying a lot. I mean, I wasn't a mom yet. I was just pregnant, and I was already worrying. I was like, oh my God, you worry about everything, like nonstop. And I was even worried about how am I going to take care of. I don't want to do shows. I don't want to travel. I just want to be with. And then Skibib just happened. I made him a scarf bib, and my friends liked it, and so they said, why don't you sell this? And so I started selling it on Etsy online, and it started doing well, and I was like, oh, okay. So it just happened that I got into that because of my son, because I hated bibs. I was like, oh, I'm gonna dress my son like a cool rock star kid, but he drooled a lot. And it was always wet here, and I was like, so I remember I had a picture of him in a really cute outfit, but all I saw was his bib, and I was like, okay, no, I'm gonna sew him a scarf bib. And that's how it all started, and I've been doing that ever since.
I just realized what skabib like standard for when you said I made him a scarf that was also a bib. Like, it literally just like clicked in my head.
Well, my mom taught me how to sew, so I would sew clothes. And when I wanted a nice bib, I looked online for something like that was in my head, and I couldn't find anything but like a bandana. And I said, no, I wanted more like a scarf look, because I love scarves. I had like a few prototypes, and then I finally came up with the one that looked good. I just went to the fabric store and I made it. And then I had a friend with a kid the same age as my son, so I gave her a few, and she's like, oh, these are cool. From there, I just started sewing at home, all these bibs, and then it got too much, so I have other people making them now. And it's awesome because it allows me to stay home with my children. Like, I'm always thankful for Asia for that time they gave me, and then I'm thankful for Skabib for the time it gives me with my children. And now I don't know what's gonna be next, but I will just go with the flow.
At what point did you realize that a lot of people were buying the Skabib products, and that maybe you might have to expand and put it on Etsy and all that?
So I made my first Skabib in 2012. I started selling them in 2013 on Etsy, and then I went into a baby convention show. I entered one of those, and that's where you meet buyers from like Zulily or Toys R Us or whatever. A Zulily buyer came up to me, and she was very interested, and that's how it all started through her. They have a sales, it's called a sales event, and you're only on their site for like maybe a day or two. I remember my first sales event on Zulily, I sold out so quick. And I remember I didn't have that much inventory, but I put in a lot of inventory. Didn't think I would sell it all. And I remember panicking because I was like, now I have to make all these, because, I promised her a certain amount, which I didn't think was going to sell, but she said, oh, they sold already, so we need more. And then that's how everything just happened. Like, I tried to find people to help me sew. I called friends, do you know anybody that sews? So it just basically went with the flow. And then from there, I sell on Amazon and Walmart.com and basically online.
So I noticed that now that your kids are older, do they ever come up to you and are like, "Hey, mom, I have an idea for something that you can do for a skabib," because I noticed that there's a variety of different things on the website. Could you tell me about like how you kind of expanded past the scarf bib thing only?
Well, it's basically from all the buyers. They just want different products. So I said, okay, what can I add? That's how those came about. But as far as my kids, no, it's sad because they don't really have any connection with skibib anymore because they're too old. I would always make them wear it, and they're like, now at a certain age, they're like, I don't want to wear. I'm not a baby anymore. And I was like, oh, it made me sad. Maybe I'll move on to something else to have a connection with. But I mean, until then, who knows?
I know with like alongside skabib, have you ever thought about doing like clothing or fashion design?
I did at one point, but I don't know. I feel like if something's gonna happen, it'll just hit me again. like music and skibib. So I can't really say.
It almost has parallels to how you got into music, like you went with the flow and there's like a really cool result.
Yeah, I say that to myself too. Like, well, it's kind of weird, but maybe I should just keep doing that. Go with the flow. Don't really worry. I mean, I still worry, but things will always be fine. Don't go too crazy. Don't worry too much. Don't kill yourself. But
And I think it's really cool that you had a period in the past where you can look back and feel like, you know, proud of that. And now you're in the current moment and you're happy and you're still doing something that's, I guess, personally fulfilling. Well, Trish, that's pretty much all I wanted to ask. And on behalf of CSUN VSA and, just me, I really appreciate you taking time and talking with us today.
well, I'm honored that you asked me because I feel like I'm not relevant anymore. But it's an honor that you still think about me, and I hope I can contribute something. I don't know if I did, but I hope maybe something.
I think so, at least. So, yeah, thanks again.
Thank you for having me.